Hey guys, how's everybody doing? And welcome back to another MLB DFS Slate Rundown. Today's Wednesday, August 26, 2020. We're talking baseball specific DFS, FanDuel, DraftKings. We're covering it all. The pitcher stacks, one-off bats, everything you need for tonight's main slate in DFS. This is No Huddle Fantasy Sports. Yo, hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to another Wednesday DFS Slate Rundown here on No Huddle Fantasy Sports. As always, thank you so much for finding your way to this channel, finding your way to this video. Obviously, if you're here, you're interested in DFS for MLB, and that's exactly what we're covering tonight for the main slate. Over on DraftKings or FanDuel, we'll cover both slates specifically. It is a little bit different tonight. Each platform, FanDuel is offering more games than actually DraftKings. Some games are offered, like the Yankees game on DraftKings. So a couple of different things we'll sort through, but we're talking pitchers, stacks, one-off bats, everything you need for tonight in MLB DFS. But hey, before we begin, I got to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that is, of course, the Dunn family. If you guys are listening in, thank you guys so much for being here. For everyone else, you have literally no idea what I'm talking about, but to give you a quick rundown tonight, MLB DFS is pretty exciting for a number of reasons. Obviously, we got a good slate, but beyond that, we're entering the NFL draft season. You know, if you're playing fantasy football, season-long fantasy football, you should be drafting any day now or have already. But we have that this weekend with a lot of buddies of mine. We've been doing it for who knows how long, a number of years. The winner of the losers bracket gets to decide how the next year's draft order is determined. And this year, the guy actually picked to use MLB DFS over on DraftKings. So we set up a specific, contest for that tonight. I know a lot of guys are really nervous about that. A lot of guys don't play DFS in general, don't play baseball, don't know anything about baseball. Specifically, I'm talking about you, Adam. I know you're a little nervous tonight, but if tonight is anything like how you hammered and did so well in your best man wedding speech, you should have no problem. You're going to get the number one pick, so do not worry. We are talking baseball specific DFS though, so let's jump into it. What are we looking for the slate outlook? Well, we got 11 total games on FanDuel, 10 on DraftKings. I talked about it's a little bit different tonight. So first of all, there is a postponement. You have your LA Angels at Houston. That game not on either site, I don't believe, but just keep in mind that game is postponed. But we do have a doubleheader, so this is where it gets unique. New York Yankees at Atlanta. On DraftKings only, that main slate game, I think it's like at 9:45 tonight, that Yankees-Atlanta game is only on DraftKings. But if you flip to the other side, even though FanDuel's not offering that game, they are offering a couple 6 p.m. games. I believe the main slate starts around 6:30 on FanDuel, so if you play on that, keep that in mind. Again, keep that in mind, a little bit different disparity between the two sites there. Tonight's awesome, in my opinion. It's an overall awesome slate. You got a lot of different ways to go. We have a lot of great pitching to go with. You're talking elite guys like your DeGroms, your Kershaws. You have some middle tier guys that are really interesting, and you even have some low tier guys that are kind of interesting tonight. So overall for pitching, I think it's a great slate in general, main slate. And then on the flip side for bats, at first I thought this wouldn't be the best slate in the world, but you have a ton of games that are offering good stacks, good bats, a lot of good matchups versus shitty pitchers. I think you can get away with a lot of different stacks tonight also. So overall, that should keep ownership down, which I absolutely love. You're not going to see a lot of concentrated ownership here because of all the variety and different ways you can go. So jumping over into the Vegas totals, always want to talk about that before we get started with the slate. There are a number of games, and I will tell you right now, these lines have changed so much just in the matter of me putting this video together. I start with putting the Vegas totals. By the time I put this video together, they had changed again, so I updated them, and I'm sure by the time you guys are listening, they will be updated, another time. So make sure, as always, you check Vegas totals as you get closer, as lineups come out. These videos are recorded really early in the morning, so I don't have lineups. Sometimes pitchers change. This Boston-Toronto game doesn't even have a line right now, so again, make sure you check all that. That's on you guys to do that. But I do want to talk about, there are 7 total teams above 5 runs projected for tonight. That's absolutely awesome. So you have a lot of different ways to stack there. And then on the flip side for pitching, if you're choosing a pitcher, we always like to stick with those 4 or less projected run teams. You have 5 total teams. That's Baltimore, Miami, Kansas City, Seattle, and San Francisco, all either facing elite pitchers or for whatever reason just projected a very low scoring night for them. So again, a lot of different ways you can go here. Just please make sure you check all your Vegas totals as we get closer to lock. And last but not least, let's talk weather. Again, on you guys here, make sure you follow Kevin Roth, WX on Twitter. He does an excellent job, as always, giving you the updates, last minute updates for weather. Roto Grinders has a great thing. Basically, every major DFS site out there has some sort of weather thing. So please, again, check everything, Vegas totals, lineups, and weather right before lock. Only thing I see this early in the day, again, we are really early. God bless Atlanta, put that first there because they've screwed people. I didn't really get screwed last night. Last night was a pretty good night overall when Giolito stayed kind of away from that New York Yankees-Atlanta game. I did have some Yankees bats in some of my lineups, which did obviously get screwed. But if you played Garrett Cole last night, you were absolutely screwed. Atlanta postponed another game in Atlanta minutes after lock. They had to know. I could spend all day talking about this. They had to know before lock they were going to postpone it. They're really screwing a lot of money, whether it's Vegas, betting, or DFS. There's a lot of money involved in that. I don't care what anybody says. When you make actions like that, I understand they can do that because there's no fans there, so they're not affecting tickets, but they're not thinking about other things. So Atlanta's done that twice this year, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you check everything before lock. Outside of that, Boston, Toronto, Chicago Cubs at Detroit, Minnesota at Cleveland, Kansas City at St. Louis. All these teams showing some sort of weather concern tonight. So again, just make sure you update and check that before lock. So boom, we've wasted enough time there. Let's jump into tonight's slate. Let's talk specific bats. For Adam out there, I'm going to tell you exactly who to play tonight, or at very minimum, you're going to know who I'm going to be playing tonight. So, hey, pay attention here. I'll help you out tonight. Maybe you'll get that first overall pick in our draft. So the two guys I want to start with, my number one pitcher on the night. This isn't by salary. I'm not listing the most expensive guy first here. Sonny Gray is my top dog. 10,200 on FanDuel, 8,800 on DraftKings. He's playing on the road, which is a little bit of a bummer, but he's playing Milwaukee, which is a huge plus. And we've been attacking Milwaukee literally all season long with right-handed pitching. Milwaukee tonight, this has probably changed by now, but a very low total of 4.05 projected runs. Like to be under 4, maybe it ends up under 4, but for now, you're still floating around that 4 run total. Nothing scary there. The good thing is Sonny Gray and the the Cincinnati Reds are slight road favorites here. You don't see that often, minus 127. So pitching on the road is a bummer, but he is a favorite here, so he should help you get that W. Again, if you play DFS, fantasy baseball, with your pitchers, yes, you want strikeouts, yes, you want to not give up runs, but you want to get the W's. Those are like 4 or 6 point swings in your pitcher. You want to get quality starts. So again, we're focusing on how we can get that here, which pitchers are in the best position to do that. He's projected 6.5 Ks tonight. That's one of the highest on the slate. Gotta like that. He has a season 35% K rate. Really, really good K rate. Will that come down a little bit? I'm sure. He's only a career 23% K guy. But in general, he's having a great season for Cincinnati. He's a really good, underrated pitcher, in my opinion. Starting to get up there in price, of course, but I certainly think he's worth it here. He had a rough first outing. I'm not going to hide that. He did play Milwaukee in Milwaukee already this season, 8-9-20 earlier this month, actually. It wasn't a really bad outing, but I think he gave up 4 runs, didn't get a quality start, didn't get the W. He still had about 7 strikeouts, so still something positive came out of that game. Again, Milwaukee, that's the key here. It's the matchup here. So you have a good pitcher in Gray facing Milwaukee, and the bottom line is Milwaukee continues to struggle versus right-handed pitching. Even with Christian Yelich, who's in that lineup, he's an MVP left-handed bat. He's not hitting the ball well. Without him, they just cannot hit righties. So you can see here in 2020, they have a 67 WRC+. That's 27th overall in baseball. Keep in mind, there's 30 teams here. 288 WOBA, that's 29th. And 141 ISO, that's 25th. So they're bottom 5, if not bottom 2, 3 in almost every major advanced stat that you can have for a lineup for a bat. Again, really good things here for Gray. But most importantly, the one thing I want to focus on, and that the reason I've been attacking Milwaukee, is they have a 27% K rate. They're striking out 27% of the time versus right-handed pitchers. That's third most overall in baseball. There's some bad teams out there, and there's nothing quite like that high of a number, 27%. What you're getting with Milwaukee here. So again, a really, really good spot. He's on the road, which does stink, but he's a good pitcher. He showed a history of being a good pitcher. He's a road favorite, projected a good K total, having a good K season in terms of percentages. And then Milwaukee, the opponent he's facing, strikes out a ton, and has no good numbers versus right-handers. So all good things here. Sonny Gray is my number 1 pitcher on the night. All right, moving on to my second favorite pitcher here. It's probably no surprise. Arguably the best pitcher in all of baseball right now. That's Jacob deGrom. And hey, I'll try to speed up on these videos. I know we don't like to go past 20 minutes here, and we are dragging this on a little bit longer, but again, trying to help you guys out here. Jacob deGrom, arguably the best pitcher in baseball right now. All things considered, he's been dominant every single year. Outside of injuries, this man literally can't be stopped. He is expensive. I believe he's the most expensive pitcher on both sites. $10,700 on FanDuel, $11K on DraftKings. Cole might exceed him. I'm not too positive on DraftKings there. But overall, just a very expensive pitcher, but for good reason. He's an elite arm, absolutely an elite arm. He's playing at home, great thing there, versus Miami. Miami is only projected 2.69 runs, and I believe that's been updated to go even lower. So in a great spot here versus a team that's just projected to do absolutely nothing in terms of a run total tonight. He's playing at home. You got to like that. He's a heavy home favorite, minus 250. Again, like I just said, you want to get those W's, in the Mets and deGrom tonight in a great spot, at least according to Vegas, put in a great spot here to get that W. He is projected the most amount of strikeouts tonight, naturally, 7.5 here. He's a dominant pitcher. I mean, that's exactly what you expect. He's a seasoned 32% K rate with a 266 xFIP. Absolutely elite numbers in 2020, and those are not unusual. That's how he has pitched over the last X amount of years. Just, again, a really great pitcher. Third straight start versus Miami. So that is whether, I don't know if this is a downside to him or if it's an upside. I guess it just depends, but he's facing literally Miami for the third straight time. He has pitched against no one else the last 2 starts. He was in Miami, or he was at home versus Miami, pitched 5 innings, gave up 2 earned, 6 strikeouts, 33 FanDuel points, 98 pitches, and then he faced Miami in Miami a week ago, 43 points, 6 innings, no earned, 7 strikeouts. So he's pitched obviously really good. We'd like to see a little bit more. That's not quite the dominant start we need out of a 10,000 plus pitcher, but I think we can get that tonight. Miami in 2020, decent numbers. They've had a decent start to the season. They're kind of fizzling off, and that's kind of what I want to focus on here. 102 WRC plus, 14th overall, right in the middle of the pack. 317 WOBA, 17th overall, so a little bit worse, but kind of right in the middle, average team versus right-handed pitching so far in 2020. But they have minimum power, and that's the key. If you take the whole season together, they're hitting 125 isolated power. That's 29th out of 30 teams. So yes, they might be average in most stats, but they are absolutely garbage when it comes to power. They're not going to hit the ball out of the park, so you got to like that for him there. Miami versus right-handers too have gotten progressively worse, and by that I mean they started the season decent. They actually were winning some games there, and then if you focus in on the last 7 days, even the last 14 days, but you can see here I list the last 7. Miami's numbers dropped to 97 in terms of WRC plus and a 90 ISO. I don't even know how you get 90. Like, that means you hit 1 double. Like, no home runs, no triples, just no power whatsoever. So compare that to their numbers as a whole in the season. They're obviously getting worse. I think deGrom, I don't need to explain to you why to start deGrom, but he's in a great spot tonight. He's my number 2 overall pitcher. Just keep in mind, he's going to be heavily owned in my opinion. All right, moving on to some of our favorite bats on the night. There are a bunch of guys I love, a bunch of guys I want to start tonight. We'll talk about a lot of them, especially towards the end here, but the bats I want to focus on, number 1, my favorite bat by far tonight is Nolan Arenado for Colorado. $3,800. I think he should be $4K on FanDuel or more, but he's $3,800 on FanDuel, so I do like that price. $4,900 on DraftKings. Getting a little pricey there, I'll be perfectly honest with you. But he's playing on the road in Arizona against Robbie Ray, the lefty. Colorado projected 4.77 runs. Again, make sure that's probably updated by now. Robbie Ray, man, and this goes against, I started him last week. I really like Robbie Ray. I think he has all the potential in the world. He struggles with walks and he struggles with home runs. I watched him pitch really well the other day. Gave up 4 earned, so didn't get the quality start. I started him. He got pissed when he gave up a 2-run shot to, I think, Flores in San Francisco, and just struck out the rest of, struck out 3 or 4 in a row. I forget what it was. But he finished with 8 Ks and 4 earned. So again, neither here nor there, but I'm going to attack him tonight. He's a lefty, and your issue here, or what you're focusing in on, is Arenado absolutely crushes lefty. He's done it his whole career versus lefties. 146 WRC plus, 414 WOBA. That's absolutely absolutely astronomical number there. 286 ISO, just pure power, and a very low 13% K rate. So again, he's not striking out. He's making contact versus lefties. He's hitting for a tremendous amount of power. All good things there for Arenado. Sets up perfectly tonight versus Ray. And then I wanted to also just mention, a lot of people argue, well, he plays in Colorado, right? Well, his numbers are actually even better outside of Colorado. I think WRC Plus jumps to like 160. I'm not lying. The numbers actually get better. And this is his career. I'm not focused on 2020. I'm not focused on 19. The dude just mashes left-handed pitching. So we're going to attack that here. He has some serious batter versus pitcher numbers. People don't like that, but when we're talking 41 at-bats here, he's 14 for 41 with 3 home runs versus Ray. I understand if he has 5 at-bats, but as you approach that 50-60 mark, it starts to normalize, and you can focus in. Those numbers become relevant. So, again, I thought I'd throw that out there. He's seen him a lot, and he has actually had a lot of success versus him. And then if you want to talk about Robbie Ray, again, I love the guy, tons of strikeout potential. And this is a high risk, high reward thing. We're going to talk about stacking the Colorado Rockies. He could strike out 40 guys for all I know tonight. It could happen. It's baseball. There's variance. You got to be ready for that. But he's a high K guy. We know that. He struggles with walks and home runs versus right-handers. And that is absolutely true. You see here, 443 xFIP, 353 WOBA. This is what Robbie Ray's given up to righties. 14% walk rate. That number is awful. Absolutely awful. He's walking a ton of batters, 45% hard hit rate. If you approach that 50% hard hit rate, man, that's just not good. And that's why he's given up 1.96 home runs per 9. That 14% walk rate, I haven't seen a walk rate that high, I don't think this year, focusing on pitchers that actually have some decent innings under their belt. So really bad numbers there. Will he strike out 8 guys? Probably, possibly. I know Colorado strikes out a lot. They haven't been the best team offensively outside of Coors. But you're talking about a guy that's going to put 2 or 3 guys on the base and give up a few home runs. I mean, that's where you get 6 or 8 innings, those crooked numbers. I love Arenado tonight. Moving on here, I'll quickly cover the next guy because he's not available on DraftKings. The Tampa Bay-Baltimore game is available on FanDuel. I really like Austin Meadows. I've loved him as a bat for a long time. Struggles with injury. That's the only reason he's not considered, in my opinion, an elite bat, at least yet. But he's $3,600 on FanDuel. He's playing at home versus Baltimore. Wojciechowski, a right-hander, Morgan Wishiwashi, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. This guy's not very good. Tampa Bay now doesn't have the run protection, so I can't give you that. But he's a FanDuel-only play. The game's excluded on DraftKings. In my opinion, this kid's becoming an underrated elite bat. Hard to say. He grew up, in the Pirates organization. They traded him away. I think he was the one that got traded for Chris Archer, so absolutely terrible trade on behalf of the Pirates here. So tough for me to swallow that pill. But he's a great bat. He mashes right-handed pitching. He's career versus righty so far. 141 WRC plus, 377 WOBA, 245 ISO. So just flip over. Look at Arenado. I mean, this kid is near Arenado numbers, an outfielder, a lefty. All good things here for Austin Meadows. I really like him. We'll call him Asher because that's his first name. Asher, the Baltimore righty, struggles versus lefties too. Career 555 xFIP, just terrible. 386 WOBA, giving up over 2 home runs per 9 innings. So just a really good matchup here in my opinion. FanDuel only play, $3,600. I do like Austin Meadows. I like Tampa Bay in general, but if you're playing on FanDuel, I like him. 2 other guys kind of coming down in price. Love to give you guys a little bit of value here, especially if we're going to be paying up for your DeGroms, and even Sonny Gray is expensive. But Miguel Cabrera, Miggy, he's historically he's going to go down as one of the greatest bats ever. Him and Albert Pujols in our lifetime are probably the 2 best bats you'll ever see career-wise. Obviously not doing too much anymore, but $2,600 on FanDuel and $2,700 on DraftKings. That price is just way too low. That $2,700 on DraftKings is just tremendously low. But he's, I'm going to play him tonight. I think he gives you value. He's in that Detroit lineup. He's going to bat in the middle of that lineup, 3rd or 4th. But he's playing at home today versus the Cubs. John Lester here, the lefty. Detroit projected 4.84 runs. Numbers probably increased by now, but Lester loved to attack that lefty, man. He's just, we'll get to that in a second, but I do like attacking John Lester. What he offers you, Cabrera that is, Miggy's going to give you a value bat with great BVP. BVP, again, if you like it or not, you're talking 26 at-bats, so he has seen Lester. I mean, these guys both collectively are probably pitched 100 a pitch. They've probably been in the league for 100 total years, but 14 for 26, 5 extra base hits. He has a home run, four walks. I shouldn't say running back, but 4 walks and 2 strikeouts. So he's not striking out a lot against him. Seeing him well, has a lot of extra base hits. Obviously, Miggy's not going to give you that old school elite bat, but he does provide value when he's in a good spot, and I think that's the case here. Since 2019, so I didn't want to focus on his career. Again, he's older. He's obviously slowed down. The bat's not the same. So let's talk about from 19 forward. Versus lefties, still really good numbers. He's batting over 155 in terms of the WRC plus, and over 400 WOBA and 190 ISO. All excellent numbers. Again, for a guy that's $2,600, $2,700 on DraftKings, it's going to help you fit a lot of different players there. And Lester, on the flip side, versus righties, is just, he's struggling. 464 xFIP, 341 WOBA, 41% hard hit rate, and 1.67 home runs per 9. I talked about him last week. Basically, he's been on the verge of falling apart. We finally saw that in his last start. He gave up 8 earned. I think that was against the White Sox, a team that just mashes lefties. But I think it's a great spot to attack Lester time and time again. It's just a matter of time. He's almost out of this league. And his numbers were basically just supporting that. You kept attacking him, and he was able to hold it together somehow. Had some really lucky numbers. A lot of things were just kind of falling in his favor. It's time, man. It's time to keep attacking Lester here. So we're going to do that with Cabrera. And last but not least here's the super high risk, high reward value play in my opinion. $2,400 on FanDuel, $3,800 on DraftKings. Much better price on FanDuel is Chris Davis. Chris with a K, one of my favorite players. He has really struggled in 2020, especially versus righties. But he's not facing a righty here. I'm not going to lie, he's not having a great season. Let's not pretend. He's way down in the order too. But I think tonight's a good spot. He's playing on the road at Texas. He's facing Allard, the lefty. Oakland projected 5.35 runs on the night. Very, very healthy number. Again, high reward, high risk play based upon the fact that he hasn't been hitting well. This play originally was almost squarely based on Colby Allard. If a righty is, I think he's definitely the pitcher tonight. I've checked it several times. He's showing up everywhere, but there was some confusion early on. So I have this listed here. For whatever reason, if it's not Allard, if it's a righty, completely scratch Chris Davis. But the fact that it is Allard, I think that's who we're going to get tonight, the lefty for Texas. That's why we're going with K. Davis here. High run projection for Oakland. I talked about that already, so good things there. He's mashed left-handed pitching for his whole career. 123 WRC plus, 351 WOBA, and a 254 ISO. So really good power numbers there. And then on the flip side, Allard, he's got just awful numbers altogether. He's pitching at home in Texas. It is an indoor park now. They have a roof and everything, so don't consider this like a weather play or anything like it used to be when it was 600 degrees in Texas. But he's a 553 xFIP, 349 WOBA, and only a 15% strikeout rate versus right-handed bats. Obviously, Chris Davis is the right-handed bat. Strikes out a lot, but hopefully this balances out here. You have a ton of risk with him, but he's really cheap. He's a cheap value, and he has multi-home run potential. Played him once this season, earlier this season, and he hit a home run. Let's hope that we go 2 for 2 here. I do like Chris Davis as a super value bat. My favorite value on the slate, as a matter of fact. So with all that said, let's talk about the stacks. The 2 stacks I'm focused in on tonight are the Colorado Rockies and the Oakland Athletics. Both guys from my top 4 bats for the day are from these teams naturally, so it fits. But the Rockies on the road in Arizona versus Robbie Ray. The key here, in my opinion, and I should have mentioned this with Aaron Otto, Arizona's roof is scheduled to be open tonight. It makes no sense. It's been open the last 2 nights too. It is literally 110 degrees in Arizona. I watched some of those games. Those guys are literally dripping sweat. It's dry Arizona heat. It becomes an elite hitting environment. They typically close the roof when it's this hot, but they haven't been. But it's an elite hitting environment, second only probably to Coors Field, where the Colorado Rockies play. That alone makes me want to continue to put bats from that game into my lineups. And so that's A for this. But B, it's Robbie Ray. Talked about how much he struggles versus right-handers with walks and home runs. Here are his stats: 325, 443 xFIP. So left versus right there, 285, 353 versus on a WOBA, left and right. And then here's the numbers we want to focus in on. He's a 7% walk rate to lefties, 14% to righties. And don't be mistaken, 7% is bad. You should not be walking 7% to even lefties. He's left on left. Why is he walking guys like that? It makes no sense, but he is. And then 14 for righties is just terrible. And then obviously giving up a ton of home runs. So he is better versus lefties. That makes sense. He's a hard throwing lefty. He's got some wicked pitches, but he's walking everyone. You just got to run into a pitch here. And then there's solid batter versus pitcher history here. On the road, Arenado, Story, Matt Kemp, Murphy, Blackman, even those lefties there of Murphy and Blackman have numbers versus him. Naturally, it makes sense because they're getting walked a lot, but we're talking powerful righties, especially Arenado and Story. I love the Rockies tonight. 4.65 team total. I think they're a great stack. Little risky because they haven't been the best stack, the best offensive team all season, but I think they're starting to heat up here. Not to mention it's also heating up in Arizona. Let's see what happens. I like the Rockies as my number one stack versus Ray. Another team I think hitting righties or hitting lefties very well with a lot of their right-handed power bats is the Oakland Athletics here. Again, I talked about Chris Davis. Well, in addition to him, I like the whole team. At Texas, playing on the road, Allard, the lefty, inside the park, in the sense that it's not an open park anymore. It's a dome, or it's whatever. It's got a roof, so it's controlled temperature, so disregard that. But Allard, the lefty here, just not really good numbers in general. Oakland is above average in 2020 versus left-handed pitching. I'm not saying they have elite numbers. They're not the Chicago White Sox, but they are a top-tier team tonight in terms of slate run projection. You can see 5.35, I believe. As of me recording that, that's number 2 overall to the Cubs, and I am not playing the Cubs. Let me just start with that. I'm done with the Cubs. I will list one guy today for the Cubs. I'm just so over trying to play the Cubs with their high totals, and they're just a freaking terrible team. But I regress. So we're talking a top tier slate. I think the number 1 overall at 5.35 if you exclude the Cubs, the Cubs. But they have top 10 power versus lefties. That's the key here. So yeah, they're average. They're like 14, 15, 16 in most stats, but they have a 210 ISO as a team. That's number 9 overall versus lefties. So they're hitting the ball out of the park. They're hitting the ball far, hitting doubles. All the good things you like for isolated power come from the Athletics. It makes sense. You have your Chapman, you have your Chris Davis when he actually makes contact. There's a lot. Semion's always been a guy that crushes lefties, their shortstop. So you have a lot of good right-handers that kill lefties in that lineup. Over the last 7 and 14 days, though, I want to talk about this specifically. They've been much, much better. They're a top team in every advanced stat. WRC+, WOBA, ISO, all those stats get better. So as a whole, as a season, 2020, maybe not so much, average team, but they're a top 10 team in the last 7 or 14 days, whichever view you want to look at it. So they're getting better, basically, in my opinion, versus lefties. And then last but not least, I did mention him earlier, Allard, the lefty for Texas. He struggles on both sides of the plate. It doesn't matter left or right. I'm going to focus mostly on the righties here because of their numbers versus lefties, but 528 xFIP to lefties, 553 to righties. Anything above 5 in context is just terrible. So the guy's not very good. But again, 5.35 team total for the Oakland Athletics here. I love them as a stack. Man, this video's taken a while, but I am excited for tonight's slate. The last thing I want to do here, as always, is talk about some other highlights. So if you can't afford, or you're not going with your DeGrom and Gray, whatever the reason might be, a couple of guys I want to mention. Danielson's Lamet, pitcher for San Diego. He's in a good spot tonight. I have no issue coming down and paying a price for him. He's actually pitched really well this season. Again, in a good spot tonight versus Seattle. And Seattle, a team you can target. He's pitching at home too, so all good things there. If you want to take a little bit of risk, and I think he's like the cheapest, or one of the cheapest pitchers on DraftKings, probably the case on FanDuel too. John Gray, pitcher for Colorado. His fastball velocity's down. He's not pitching very well this season, but he's pitched like almost every game so far in Colorado. He's now going in Arizona. Again, a hitting environment. We'll see how it works out, but Arizona has some pretty bad numbers versus right-handed pitching. John Gray from time to time can get it, reel it back and really get after team. So I like him as a really cheap SP2 on DraftKings, or if you just, are literally crazy and want to go with him on FanDuel, you can get away with it here. I think it's a good matchup. And then last but not least, you have Clayton Kershaw on the slate. Obviously, you can start him anytime he's on any slate. He has ridiculous batter versus pitcher numbers versus literally the whole lineup of San Francisco, sorry. The only thing is San Francisco, the reason I didn't list him as a favorite pitcher is they've actually hit lefties pretty well this season. Even in the last couple of weeks, you see your Flores, is the people they've added to their lineup really do damage to lefties. I'm not saying he's going to get eaten alive, but if he gives up 2 or 3 runs, it's hard to justify him at his price tag. But so that's the last pitcher I will mention there. Again, all for your consideration. Just some bats I'll pull out here. Trevor Story in a good spot. Obviously, like the whole stack of the Colorado Rockies, but he's in a good spot. Cody Bellinger is just, I think he's starting to heat up, man. He is absolutely on a tear right now. You have your Chapmans, your Confortos, basically the whole Mets outfield. I'll list them. Conforto, Nemo, both guys in good spots there. Jonathan Scoop, if you want another Detroit value bat, second base in a good spot. Manny Machado's on fire, third baseman for San Diego. if you want to play a little bit of a role there. Machado is just crushing the ball right now. And then, God forbid, if you want to play a Chicago bat, Schwarber remains at like $2,700 under 3K, so go ahead and play him, I guess. You want to play Chicago bat. The other stacks I do want to mention, though, if you're playing FanDuel only, Tampa Bay Rays stacks a good spot. I like it because I think a lot of people will not be on that stack or any of those early games. There's only two that are available on FanDuel and not on DraftKings. That's Baltimore at Tampa Bay, Miami at New York Mets. I'm sorry, Boston at Toronto, Baltimore at Tampa Bay. Everybody that's going to put out content today is going to talk mostly DraftKings because that's what they do. They're going to talk the main slate, which is 7-10 on. So a lot of people won't be aware of the Rays. I think they're in a great spot. Sneaky on FanDuel. I do like the Rays a lot today. Last but not least, I have the Detroit Tigers listed here. I think they're in a great spot. Let's see Lester blow up again. But beyond that, they offer, if you're like going with DeGrom, they offer a good value stack. A lot of players, a lot of good players under 3K that are in good spots. And last but not least here, I guess second time I'll say that, St. Louis Cardinals in a good spot. They're starting to heat up as a team, but them in general in a good spot playing Junis for Kansas City. Junis on the road, his numbers are just bad. That would be the last stack I will mention. And so that really wraps it up. Please leave me some comments down below. I covered a lot in this video. We have a lot going on tonight, a lot of different ways you can go. I'm really excited for this slate. I got a couple different reasons why. But as always, I do put out a pitcher's guide every Wednesday and Friday. Check it out down below. It's PDF, absolutely free. Click it. It's going to give you all the advanced stats for guys that are scheduled for the slate, the main slate tonight. It's going to be helpful. That's basically the bottom line. You don't have to provide an email or do anything else. Just click the freaking thing and check it out. And last but not least, Daily Fantasy Nerd. They are the optimizer I use. Easily the best optimizer in baseball, in my opinion. I've used them for years. Check them out. There's an affiliate link. It helps me. It helps the channel. Please check it out. I think you get a month free. That is linked down below. And so that, again, wraps it up. I thank you guys so much for hanging in there. This video is a bit longer, but we're going to crush it tonight. We're going to win in DFS, win some money, and B, I'm going to be the #1 pick in our season-long NFL draft. So I'm pumped for that. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Please make sure you do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It goes a long way. I'm trying to push and grind and grow this channel. Follow us at No Huddle FS. I'll post some last-minute advice, last-minute picks before lock. Make sure you check everything like Vegas, lineups, weather. You know the spiel here. But as always, good luck, and I'll check you in the next video.